fighting the 4-pound smaller king does more for your career than facing the bigger, menacing Mexican monster and David Benavidez? Do you think this fight does more for your career than fighting David Benavidez?
You can see the career of Terence Crawford Benavidez. Terence Crawford is undisputed champion in 2 weight classes, many championship fights. So he bring me something to the table. He bring me something to the table for my history, and that's all about.
You know, my belief is if you're gonna say it all. Don't say some, say it all. In terms of the interview that we just witnessed, everybody, and I seen multiple channels just, hey, yeah, you know, Canelo destroyed Terence Crawford in the interview. And, you know, it just shows that, you know, Terence Crawford's, you know, resume is poor, and, you know, and Canelo has a point with this, that, and the other. But it's crazy what people take out at their own discretion. I just find that real strange, because you have Canelo Alvarez stating that Terence Crawford has a better resume and has better accomplishments than David Benavidez, which is 100% fact. No matter how you slice it, dice it, he doesn't hold a candle, David, in his career to what Terence Crawford has done. That's why Terence Crawford, people, believe it or not, is one of the pound-for-pound best fighters because of his accomplishments. And you ask yourself, why was that taken out? And you do ask, like, why was it taken out? Because it totally contradicts what Canelo said about, well, who has he fought? Well, who has he fought versus what he's done, you know, or things that contradict each other. Because it's like, well, you know what he's done. He's just done it in smaller weight classes. They weren't at 147, you know, not entirely. I mean, until he done it. You know, that was his latest undisputed victory division, Terence Crawford. He just didn't do it in like 154. He just done it in smaller weight classes, 140, 147. You know, he was the lineal at 135, right? So that being said, you know, it's just amazing on how they took it out and why they took it out. And the only thing I can muster up is the reason they took it out was because they didn't want to make Canelo look like he was contradicting himself. And people do that a lot. You know, you can say something about a person then to discredit them, and then say something about a person to credit them, and then it looks strange. So, you know, that may be a part of the PR team just to not show that type of weakness or, you know, flaw in terms of, you know, what you say versus how concrete you are with, you know, how you're saying it. You know what I mean? Terence Crawford versus David Benavidez. You know, he didn't want David Benavidez to come up also, and that could have been a factor because a lot of people have wanted Canelo to fight David Benavidez, and the reasons for Canelo not fighting David Benavidez is mostly poor. You know, it's not really enough reasoning behind not fighting him. You know what I mean? He was the guy that once had the belt at the WBC and at the weight class that he reigns in. So he's the old champion. He never lost the belt out of the ring. It would seem like to me the person that you would want to fight was the person that lost the belt outside of the ring instead of inside of the ring, which is undefeated. You know, you fight all these guys that really don't belong there, like Jaime Munguia. Jaime Munguia doesn't belong at super middleweight. I'm sorry. He doesn't belong there. That's why he got knocked out by guys like Sarash, the Frenchman. You know what I mean? That's why he was, you know, dropped by Canelo, because he does not belong in that weight class. He's a big boy. Sure, he can make the weight because, yeah, I'm pretty sure his walking around weight is probably 175 maybe. But fighting at 168 for Jaime Munguia was not ideal. You know what I mean? But David Benavidez was once upon a time, and I think he's outgrown the division. But I think the whole idea of them just, you know, bringing up David Benavidez and comparing David Benavidez to Terence Crawford, you know, Canelo Alvarez is not going to give that type of credit. So at that point, he pumped his brakes. Well, yeah, well, no, you can look at Crawford and his career, you know, he has something to bring to the table. Well, what does he have to bring to the table if he never fought an elite fighter? You see what I mean? So, yeah, the contradiction's there, and you can see why they snatched that shit out of the video. But that's exactly a part of the video. So if you're going to tell one part of it, you got to tell it all. You see what I mean? And that's why Crawford wasn't too bothered by, that's why he wasn't too bothered by the whole interview as a whole, because he wasn't in control of what they showed versus what they didn't show, what they chose to share, what they didn't choose to share. You know what I mean? And they didn't choose to share that particular part, which is very important. You see what I mean? And that's why you can tell they snatched it out. And mostly the things that stick out in interviews, you know, that are controversial or impactful, they snatch that shit out. You know, and it just shows you the power of media and what people want to show as their narrative. But you guys tell me what you think of this deleted footage. Shout out to Bruce Vane, because I just saw it on his channel. That's why I'm reiterating it. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace!